Namaste and welcome to another episode of the Amazing Vedas with Dr. Pariksith Singh. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We want to continue our conversation about Mahasaraswati or the river Sarasvati and use Premaji's book as a point of, if not departure, at least a point of reference. She calls it the Perennial Spiritual Stream. And she quotes Sri Aurobindo, his own translation of some important verses or mantras from the Rig Veda. Let me just read these with your permission.
Yes.
Sri Aurobindo calls, her, that is Saraswati, inspirer of the truthful, rouser of the noble-minded. May Saraswati accept our worship. Saraswati, mighty ocean, she rouses up her light and brightens all intellect. So, for Sri Aurobindo, Saraswati was the power of truth, which we call inspiration. She purifies our minds and helps us get rid of falsehood and all, our wrongly inspired vital and emotional movements, which then obviously result in false action and so forth. So, why is this important? Because, we go back to Saraswati, to the persistence of, the Indian mind, the Indian civilization, the symbolism of the Vedas, which, as Sri Aurobindo says, betrays itself, I'm quoting him, with the greatest clearness in the figure of the goddess Saraswati. So, Dr. Singh, would you like to comment on this aspect that we discussed briefly last time?
Yes. So since you threw a bouncer at me last time and I expertly, adroitly ducked and let the wicketkeeper take the bouncer, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. That's more baseball, but let me throw that at you. And sometimes there is and Vedic references are there about Saraswati, of course, who's phenomenal description of and her the inspiration that comes, and then Sindhu, which I believe is now called Indus River. How do you relate the two? What is the connection between the two? I would like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yes, sir. See, this is a very important question for a number of reasons. And one obvious reason is that during the colonial period, they did some excavations and they came up with the idea of the Indus Valley civilization, which in turn led to, all kinds of notions of the so-called Aryan invasion. We've briefly referred to these theories and why it's important to debunk them, as Sri Aurobindo himself did. But, it's more accurate to refer to that ancient civilization as an Indus-Saraswati civilization. I believe that, Michel Danino has referred to it as the Indus-Saraswati civilization and system in his book I mentioned, On the Trail of Saraswati, The Lost River, it's called. Penguin has published this book, and it's a very good book. It has, geology, hydrology, satellite imagery, radiocarbon datings, as well as archaeology. I mean, it refers to a variety of disciplines and modern scientific evidence, along with a kind of approach of civilizational layering, to talk about the abandonment of the early Harappan, Saraswati sites, and then the move east towards, the Ganges and Yamuna. But I mean, I think Professor Kalyan Raman also talks about, the Indus Saraswati as a better way to characterize the ancient civilization. So this is the first reason why we have to explore the connection between these two rivers, that in the modern colonial interpretation, Saraswati is forgotten, though, as we've said, Saraswati in some ways is far more important. Now, let's look at Indus, which is called Sindhu, and we'll come back to this later. But I just wanted to mention that the word Sindhu, I just did a search before our podcast, appears 176 times in the Rig Veda. But here's the thing, it's used generically as a river. And only later it refers to the great Indus River herself, which, by the way, is still a very important river. I've gone to the source in Ladakh of this great river, and I mean, I was at the banks of this. It's also in Himachal. If you go to Lahore, Spiti, you're taken in Ladakh and in these areas to, some of these, the source of this river, and it's very inspiring. The waters are very cold up there. But here's the point that I'm trying to make, then I'll turn it back to you. Saraswati is mentioned 70 times. Indus, though it's not the river, Sindhu as representing this great, big, river, is referred to 176 times. But I mean, we've seen, you mentioned how Saraswati is the Maho Arna, the mighty flood. But, the point is that Saraswati is far more important, please, without making any false comparisons to us, because she's not only the river, but she's the goddess, she's Paravak, and Indus is beautiful, very important, and the Sapta Sindhu. So my submission, and then you can offer your response, is that Indus is valuable as a cultural geographical marker of a certain people, who later were identified as Hindus because the Persians used the her sound instead of the sir sound, right? So Sapta Sindhu became the Hapta Hindu, in Avestan and then Persian. So it's a geographical, cultural marker, and now a political marker, especially with Chandranath Basu and his book Hindutva, and of course Savarkar's 1923 very important pamphlet Hindutva. But it's a political, so cultural, civilizational, geo-political marker. But Saraswati, Paravak, it's a global symbol, as we said. It's not confined to any, whatever cultural, geographical, or political ideology. What do you think about this?
As you know, I'm extremely liberal in my approach to these words, and perhaps too liberal, but that's how I approach, thanks to you also, literature, in opening the possibilities, opening the lines of thought, and seeing a symbol in as many possible ways as there are. So Sindhu, of course, is Sri Aurobindo says the Sindhu means a river or even the ocean, and it's a body of water. And Sindhu is, even he says, it's above our mental awareness. So to me, Sindhu becomes something very significant, and Sindhu and Saraswati are connected. Maybe they were geographically connected, maybe they were rivers connected with each other, similar origin or something. But at least here, if Sindhu is considered to be the Maho Arnaha, the ocean above, ocean of light above, and
No, that
Saraswati
is Saraswati, sir. Saraswati is the Maho Arna.
I
It
know,
is
but
not Sindhu. Yeah, it is not
but
Sindhu. So yeah,
I'll tell you, there are references where Sindhu is an ocean,
yeah. I
not
agree.
just
It's a large body of water.
large body of
It's a
water, and Saraswati is descending from the ocean of light.
exactly that is my point. So
That is the
Saraswati.
descent of, yes,
Exactly. So Saraswati, and later that movement from the
yes,
so-called heavens or the Bhur Bhuva the world of Swa or Swar,
right,
to the earth is again replicated with the
yes,
Ganga
yes,
descending. You see, with
yes, in
Bhagirath and all
later,
descending. So this is so important for us. That's why, as I said, Indus, important as it is, does not have that dual meaning of
right,
goddess as well as river, the purifying river as well as higher consciousness, which the Ganga carries forward. And
yes,
the
yes,
Indus is more geographical, cultural, and later political. So that was my, you know,
yes, yes,
uh,
yes,
take on the, connection. But I do believe that it's a beautiful, I would think, kind of replication. So earlier you had Indus Saraswati, as these two twin rivers. And of course, there were the Punjab, the five
right,
rivers, etc. But the two great rivers, and then the two great rivers further east, Ganga and Yamuna. So the point really is that these ancient people, the Hindus, you want to call them by whatever name, they found certain so-called eternal or paradigmatic truths. And when the conditions became unfavorable, whether it was a geographical or some climate change issue, a cataclysmic, an earthquake, whatever, so they moved, but they continued, in their fundamental orientation, which was to link the physical with the transphysical, and the vital and the spiritual and the psychic. So wherever they went, and they went further east, they went to the Mekong Delta, they created a magnificent civilization there, as we know, in Angkor Wat and in Siam Reap and all of these places. And then in Vietnam, I mean, they had these in Thailand. They had these, massive temples. They had these pavitra parvatas. They created Meru wherever they went. They created the Ganga wherever they went. They create so these are, going back to your idea, eternal symbols of the human quest, of human aspiration itself.
Yes, yes. And I think we can take inspiration from how at least they aspired, how they connected the world together. The world not just of vision or the physical sphere around us, was also the world of imagination. We kind of put down imagination because we say, oh, visual, they saw it. Yes, they saw it. They heard it. And that is the truth, the spiritual truth. But the spiritual truth also has the ability to create out of its vision. And that, of course, I'm just not talking about a poetic imagination. Okay, you think of things, but that imagination that can create, or the creative power. And that is fabulous. You create your own future, you create your own path towards immortality and truth. That is really what the power of what Sri Aurobindo calls a super mind is. And if you go back to Sri Aurobindo's meditation, he says, this will be in by the seventh day, my willpower will be able to control this. And he worked towards it. So it is the ability not just of seeing, which is very powerful, or envisioning, but to make that vision creative. And beautifully, Swami Dayanand, let me bring him here. He calls Yagya Shilpa Vidya, sculpting. Very beautiful phrase he has used. So Yagya is not just performing, experiencing the divine, offering everything, but creating a new life out of it, creating something beautiful in the future with that knowledge and the power.
No, that's beautiful, because the Kavi in the Vedic conception was a maker, was a creator.
Yes,
And the
yes,
Greeks said vates, like
yes,
Homer, or before Homer, Hesiod. They were creators.
yes,
And even Coleridge said the imagination is esemplastic. In other words,
yes,
what you imagine, you create. And even today, we are imagining these tremendous technological inventions, whatever these first come in imagination, as Plato said. There's an ideal form, then that ideal form we try to recreate. So,
yes,
this podcast, we are really seeing the interconnectedness of things in a completely non-parochial, non-chauvinistic way, in an open way, and we hope it's empowering to the young, because, in other words, if you really set your mind to it, you have that creative power, that Ichha Shakti.
yes,
And when you combine it with Jnana Shakti, with the power of the intellect, of the mind, then you can actually, have Kriya Shakti, the action, that is required to bring your dreams into realization and reality. So, with these words, let us invoke Saraswati to bring perfection and purity to our lives, to our endeavors, and to continue to guide us, the Paravak that takes us towards transcendence and towards the supermind, from this terrestrial existence, which is also, despite its ups and downs, it's full of rasa, because Saraswati is really the rasa, the jouissance of life, and the vital energy which is also aesthetic, because the mother wanted to bring beauty into the smallest things we did, as children, as we continue to do. And that orientation towards the aesthetic is also a way to uplift us and to cleanse us, and to take us to our own higher and divine nature. So, with these words, we thank you and invite you to our next episode of the Amazing Vedas, where we want to talk about Varun or Varuna. So thank you all, and hope to see you soon. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and check us out on X, Amazing Vedas. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.